Hi, this is Mighty CS Man. I teach a complete curriculum on the Building Java Programs book and the Practice It website. Please see my week 1 orientation for how to get set up on Practice It. Today we are looking at exercise 5.9 print factors. Chapter 5 is about indefinite loops and random numbers. Today I think this problem is just looking at indeterminate loops, and it's also using some knowledge about factors. So let's take a look at the problem description. So print factors accepts an integer, okay, so that's important, as its parameter and uses a fence post loop. Well, they gave away the trick. This is a fence post loop, but I want to talk about how you determine it's a fence post loop. To print, the goal is to print the factors of that number. So, and those factors are going to be separated by the word and. So first of all, let's review what are factors. Okay, so factors of a number are number n are numbers n mod x is equal to 0. So for 24 factors, what are the numbers that you can divide the number 24 into evenly? Okay, so 1 is a factor for all number. 2, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, not 5. We've already talked about 6, not 7, but 8 times 3 is 24, and then nothing up till 12, and then finally 24. Okay, so mod, our good friend mod, comes in handy in for many different places, but here, if you divide 24 by 2, okay, what's the remainder? The remainder is 0. Okay, that's what this is telling us. So once again, mod comes into play. So what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to print out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 6. The key is that we have n items here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items. And we have n minus 1 separators. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that tells us the fence post problem. So I call it the fence post problem and not the fence post loop, because really the fence post is just the type of problem it is. And the way you solve it, you should know from reading chapter 9, is using a loop and a half. Okay, so loop and a half is the simplest way to solve this. It works every time, so it's an easy way to teach it. What is a loop and a half solution? First, the half loop, and then the full loop. Okay. I always try to teach my students, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, think about what you're given, think about where you need to go, and then think about what tools do you have at your disposal. In this case, what we're given is n. All right, so we already start with n. That's important. Okay. Where we're going is we need to generate this loop here. Obviously, it looks like a for loop we're going to be going over here. And we need to think about what tools we have to use at our disposal. Well, we have the knowledge of what a fence post problem looks like, and we have the knowledge of how to do a loop and a half. Okay, so let's continue reviewing what does a full loop and what is a half loop. Actually, let's assume that we didn't know that first, and let's see what the problem is. Okay, let's at least get the factors out. What are the factors of this? So we know that the factors, I'm just going to do here, the factors can be generated by a for loop, right? So let's do a for loop. Let's start with the factors of 1 while the factor is less than or equal to n. Okay, and then inside here, let's just do let's do the if statement. Okay, so we'll say if n mod factor equals 0, that means this is a factor, so we can print it. System.out.print. Let's do it in separate lines, and remember to print factor. Okay, this is why I tell people don't use I or J or whatever. Use a name that actually makes sense, because in this case it's easy to get the thing right, because it's not I, it's a factor, right? We're printing out factors, right? Okay, so let's just run this and see what happens. It's not going to work. I mean, it's not going to pass all the tests, but let's just see what it did. Okay, so what we wanted was 1 and 2 and 4, and we printed out 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we can't do a println because it's not going to show up. So I'm going to do a factor plus space. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 24. Okay, so we know that this code snippet right here to determine if it's a factor is working. We're getting the right things, but it's not printing the right things. I'm going to just put an ampersand here so you can see. Actually, let's put a space around the ampersand so you can see what's going on. So we've got this, but it's got this thing sticking off the end, right? And we don't want to print one sticking off the end. This is the sign that we have a fence post problem. We have a fence post problem. We got a fence post bug. Okay, if you ask any programmer anywhere, I don't care what level of programming they're at, and you ask them what's a fence post bug, they'll tell you you're off by 1. Okay, and that's the most general sense. In this particular case, what we are specifically trying to do is to reduce the number of these separators here. And so the solution for a fence post is to do a half loop and then a full loop. So what does that mean? That entails the full loop has to be reversed order, and the half loop is printing the first post. Okay, so let's reverse the order here. So instead of printing factor and we'll do and factor. Okay, but we've got to have something here to start. We can print the first factor. Okay, now I'm just copying factor here, but hopefully you've realized factor is out of scope. Okay, factor is here, so we can't use factor. One thing we could do is we could pull factor out, but actually let's think about what is factor, or the first factor. Do we know what the first factor is? It's always going to be 1. Okay, so we can just print 1. That's the half loop. This is the full loop. So instead of printing 1 and 2 and 3, we are printing 1 first, and then a loop, we're going to print and 2 and 3 and 4. Well, there's one small problem here, though. I'll go ahead and run it, and we'll see what the problem is. As part of your reversing process, you have to go to the second item. Okay, you can't go to the first item. So 2 is not always going to be a factor, but this code will figure out whether it's a factor or not. Okay, so it failed the test, but actually look at what's going on. 1 and 2 and blah blah and 24. So this actually worked now. We reversed the order of operation. So we printed 1 in the half loop, then the full loop, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then we get to the end, and 24. Okay, so that is, this is as far as I'm going to take the problem. You're going to have to work out the details exactly on your own. But let's take a look at what was this problem dealing with? Print factors. Well, one thing was dealing with factorization, which I covered here. It's not really a part of the course, but it should be something you understand by now. And I explained how mod is used to figure out factorization. Okay. Second thing, and the most important thing, is this is an indefinite loop, and it's a fence post problem because we have n items and n-1 separators, and to solve it, we always, for a fence post problem, can always be solved using the loop and a half. Okay, that's the beauty of the loop and a half solution. Can always be solved that way. And the way you do the loop and a half is you reverse the order of the main loop, and you do the first item beforehand. Okay, so we had to print 1 here, we had to start at 2, and then we had to print and then the factor. Okay. A side note on the loop and a half solution, You may have watched my video, or you should watch my video on the prior problem, which is, it's actually the 2 problems ago, 5.7. Okay, 5.7, I talked about how a sentinel loop can sometimes be solved with a loop and a half. That one didn't, but it can be solved with a loop and a half. So I want to re-emphasize that the 2 main things that you're learning, 2 main algorithms you're learning in this chapter are fence posts and sentinel loops. Okay, the fence post is always solved by the loop and a half. The sentinel loop is sometimes necessary to use a loop and a half, but not always. Okay, so fence post and sentinel loop, those are the 2 main things you're learning. Loop and a half is a solution, always for the fence post, sometimes for the sentinel loop. Okay. All right, well, if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I have a complete curriculum on teaching Java through the Building Java Programs book. And please check out all my other videos.